to reflect that the roll call includes almost all the committee members except Mr. Ucalito. He's not here. And Marissa, you will take note of everyone else here. And thank you all for coming. Looking for motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Bill, that has to be you. Second. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
The minutes transmitted electronically. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
We have our minutes approved. Public participation. Anyone from the public wish to address the group?
I have no one on the phone.
No one from the public wishes to address the group. That's just as well because the spiel that goes into that.
Oh, they have chairs, so that's fine. Okay.
Anyway, discussion next steps. Sue, would you please introduce our community partner for tonight?
I would love to introduce our special community partner, and the timing couldn't be more exciting either, right? So Judy McElhone, and with 5 Points Gallery, and 5 Points Art, 5 Points Arts, Art Center and Gallery, Art Center and Gallery, okay. And what's really interesting about the timing of this meeting is that a year ago tomorrow, Judy was honored at Torrington High School as our distinguished alum recipient. So it's so nice, right? Full circle, and here you are.
Thank you.
We've done some things together since that time that Judy's going to share with the committee. And tomorrow night we have our ceremony again, and we will welcome our next recipient for the distinguished alum. So it's actually this committee under John Kisco's leadership that runs that nomination process.
But Mrs. Ferguson does all the work.
Mrs. Ferguson is the lucky one who gets to make the calls and meet with such lovely people. So thank you for coming. We're happy you're here. And if you could just share with the committee and our guests a little bit about yourself, a little bit about 5 Points, some of the things that we do together in collaboration.
Absolutely. So I'm an artist. I'm a graduate of Torrington High School, Hartford Art School, and I have a BFA, MFA, and I've exhibited widely. And then in 2012, it dumped in my lap. They wanted to open a gallery in downtown Torrington, temporary for the summer. I could do it temporary for the summer. And I said, sure. And then after we got through that summer, I remember that summer I went out to people that I knew in the art world and said, would you like to show, this gallery in downtown Torrington? And you know what I got? Why would I want to show in Torrington? Oh. And I said, because I asked you to, and I've done you favors. And right now, we have a waiting list in that gallery in downtown Torrington that could go out for 5 years.
Wow.
We don't keep a stable of artists. We are not a co-op. Instead, I have a database, and we have a database where we select artists, and they have submitted from 13 countries and 37 states. So you bring the artists together so they can network and grow with one another, and the gallery has grown in that way. And then we had the opportunity to buy the former UConn campus. And so someone came into my office downtown and said, a board member, and they said, Judy, you know the UConn campus is for sale? And I said, yeah. And they said, well, do you want to go look at it? Okay. So we went and looked at it, and we had to put a letter of interest in. That was a Friday, a letter of interest by the next Wednesday. So we did, and we went through this process that went 18 months, and then we closed on June 30th, 2020, in the middle of the epidemic. And we got a grant after that for $2,733,500 from DECD, which has allowed us to renovate that campus and buy the equipment we need to be a cross-disciplinary arts center for not just Northwest Connecticut, but beyond that. And people are coming from way beyond that also. And we're growing it. And then we decided we could partner. I have 2 daughters that graduated from art schools, and myself, and when you graduate, you lose a community, So we started, I should backtrack a little bit, we started this launchpad in downtown Torrington that's over the 5 Points Gallery, and thanks to the Torrington Downtown Partners, people can apply after they graduated from art school and have shared studio spaces for $85 a month. And so we bring in artists that way, so they're young artists coming in with some of the older artists that they can meet and can communicate with. And so then the campus has started, and last Friday night, we opened the renovated courtyard. And it's gorgeous, you've got to come see it. It's absolutely gorgeous. It has a stage and flowers and plants, and it was just a tangle of weeds when we moved in. So that's pretty much what we are, except I decided to reach out to Sue, and when when our daughters were in school, even when I was in school, high school art classes can't, in my opinion, meet all the needs of serious artists. You just can't do it. The teachers are wonderful, but you have some kids who are there because they don't want to take an academic class, and you have others that are very serious about the arts. So we thought we could partner and bring in people for an after-school program that wanted to know more about the arts and learn in the arts, and we did that. And we figured it out as we went along. But if you want to do it again, baby steps quickly is my motto, and I've got new ideas. So that's the story.
Yeah. I think that just as one thing I would add is the program or the project that we worked on most recently together. One of our retirees from Torrington High School, right? Rick, right?
Rick, yeah.
Was the teacher for the program.
Yes, he was, yeah.
So he knew some of the kids, and
it was great.
It
right.
couldn't have been more perfect. Yeah.
So we also have Litchfield interested in doing an after-school program too, and they were very much interested in the different disciplines we offer there, like ceramics and printmaking and alternative photo, which I didn't know anything about. I don't know anything about some of these things. I'm a painter, but that's something that I think if we go forward would be something that we could offer, so that they would be doing basic drawing and learning and growing with that, but then go cross-discipline into these other areas, which would be very helpful.
Yeah, it was wonderful. It was a wonderful collaboration, and I just have to give a shout out to Donna Labby, our grant writer, who helped really to make it happen.
Right, right, absolutely. And that's what 5 Points is about, really bringing to art, supporting artists at all stages of their careers. We just have to break even. We're not trying to make a fortune, but just have that happen. And that's what we're doing. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know if anyone's...
Questions? Please.
It's impressive what you're doing, so thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate that. Sometimes I think, really, Judy?
What are the hours of the gallery for just?
The gallery downtown is open Tuesday through Sunday, 1 to 5. The Art Center is open 9 to 5, and usually a little later than that, 6 days a week. Yeah, it's only closed on Sunday, which I finally put my foot down.
There you go.
Finally, I said no.
The things that you offer at 5 Points, it's just, at this point, it's just drawing and painting, it's not other things such as sculpture?
We don't do sculpture yet, but we're thinking about that. We would be using the old garage they had there if we had sculpture on it. Right now, it's not just painting and drawing. It is printmaking, traditional printmaking. It's strange because the way we built it, we have printmakers. Right now, there's a juried print show at the campus in conjunction with the print show festival that we put on this weekend. And every printmaker that comes in said there's nothing like it in New England. I don't quite believe that, but it's pretty impressive. It's 2 floors looking out into the woods with all kinds of terrific equipment. We saved a lot of money on that grant by doing a lot of work ourselves with staff and volunteers. So yes, there's a lot more, including a weaving lab, a textile lab that hasn't opened yet, and a ceramics lab that everybody's loving. Yeah.
Nice. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there any school connection between 5 Points and your Torrington Historical Society with the John Brown walking trail? Is there a school connection to that?
The connector trail, it starts at 5 Points and goes up to the John Brown property.
Right.
And we worked with them this weekend. They did, as part of the print festival, they used what we call the kids lab. We call them labs because that's where you experiment and explore. There are no private studios. And they had this program, how did they word it? Give a hoot, don't pollute. And so they had all kinds of kids in there for that, walking the trail. And we love working with them and the Torrington Trails Network and the Historical Society, Gail Krupa, and love it.
Other questions? Brian, were you asking a question?
Nope. That was my hand I put it up. But yeah, you still have, we actually went in a couple times, a long time ago, and we had some aspiring college artists. we're able to get some paintings that are excellent. I'm hoping to sell them for a lot more later. But they're great. You still do the same. You still, I know you have a 10-year waiting list, but do you still take local college artists in between?
We have an
display?
annex downtown.
Okay.
And the annex is the 5 Points Annex, and that can be rented for $400 now for 2 weeks, okay?
Okay.
But we don't take a commission on sales, and like all galleries, the professional gallery takes 50% on sales.
Gotcha.
So we do that. It's first come, first served, and they're almost totally booked for 2025. Yeah, but we want to show kids.
Yeah, I thought it was great that the local artists in
yeah.
college can
Yeah, they can all do that,
people buy
yeah.
them and help support. You know?
Yeah, UConn's reached out, Hartford has reached out to get their students in, and I keep saying, do it fast, because it's going fast. And I can't say enough for the downtown partners who've been so supportive of the arts in general, yeah.
Now, you may have said this and I missed it, photography?
Oh, yeah, photography. So there's a dark room, but there's also a wide format printer, 60 inches wide, we got through the grant. And then there's alternative photography, which means you can take, I know nothing about this, trust me, but you can take a digital negative off your phone or a camera, and you can manipulate it in different ways that makes it not, the easiest way to say, not look like a photograph. And there's 6 different methods you can use, and we've had some of the really amazing photographers working in those disciplines coming in from as far away as California and New York to teach those classes, yeah. So, yeah, a lot of support.
Great.
I think just because we're trying to do it for the right reasons, I think.
Wait, and last summer you helped us out with theater space.
Yes, we
for
did,
the-
and we love that.
Yes.
Yeah, it was so much fun, yeah.
We were in a bind because of the construction project, and there was a little bit of competition between the summer band and the summer theater, so we reached out to Judy and she gave Ronnie a space to run the summer theater program, which was wonderful.
Yeah, we really enjoyed it, having them there, yeah.
Yeah,
Such nice music in the halls.
yeah, so.
Anything else?
You have a great website too, I was checking it
Oh,
out.
I'm so glad you say that, because we're thinking we need to make it simpler. Do you find it hard to use? Oh, good. Okay, good, because
I'm never super tech savvy, so yeah.
we have a staff meeting every Tuesday morning, and that came up. Oh, well, maybe the website, and it's a relatively new website, yeah.
Yeah.
And,
What's your web address?
5points.org.
5 Points.
Arts.org. And under that, you'll find the gallery downtown, all of the activities downtown, and then the activities at the
Okay,
summer campus.
it's 5 Point Art or Arts?
Arts, plural. Points and arts are plural.
Okay, and it's not,
Or-
.org, okay, thank you.
Yep, .org, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, well, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, all you do, really.
Judy, thank you so much.
And I have to say, I saw the owl on the staircases that came up. I went to North School, and it was so nice to see the owl. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
You get that out. That's cool. I get that. Right? Save the out.
Next on the agenda is the high school report, and high school business started as usual with a walkthrough. Mrs. Conway couldn't be there, she's busy getting ready to skip town.
That's okay, that's more important.
I got it myself.
In my defense, I was in an evaluative exercise by FEMA, so I could not get out of that one. I apologize. I would have loved to have been there, and I do apologize.
You would have enjoyed it. You know, it's fun. We start the year walking through the schools for younger kids, and then we go up to the 4th and 5th grade schools, Southwest and 4th, and then the middle school, which is its own kind of fun, and then, but by the time we get to the high school, it's home game for me. I just go to the high school. Spent a lot of time in high schools. And it's just, same thing as always though. We go through the school and things are happening the way they're supposed to, and things are happening in class the way they're supposed to. This time of the year, what they're supposed to be doing is getting ready for exams, and that's what they were doing.
Yes, we got to see quite a few, John and I popped into a few different rooms, got to see some students getting ready for their finals. Also, we walked through the senior exams, got to see the seniors who did not get themselves exempt from exams. But they were working hard.
If I will get a parking place, I will report.
Yes.
other than that, all yours. We're going to hear what's going on at the high school with tests and whatever else.
Yep, this will be largely a data report. Of course, we had presented to you folks a few months ago with our college and career pathways, which has been the main project that we have undertaken this year. We do have a few other things we'll highlight, but mainly this will be about the data for the school. Just to start off, and we have our screen up there, perfect. This year, we bounced back and forth. Our student population did vary throughout the year. At the highest point, we were just over 1050. At our lowest point, we were at 1018. So the student population did range through that area. Our student body makeup was 41% Caucasian, 41% Hispanic Latino, about 8% African American Black, 6% Asian, 3% multi-race, and then an assortment of other identified races. And then, if you want to switch to the next slide, we're going to be starting off talking about our SAT data, and then we will move on to the PSAT data, and then talk about some of the highlights from the year.
Perfect, thank you. So the SAT for the reading and writing and the math combined, we went up a couple percentage points from last year, which is good. This is, keep in mind when you look at the scores for all the SAT and PSAT tests, this is the first year, I'm sure you heard a lot about it in the news, first year of the new digital SAT, completely different SAT test. It's an adaptive test, which means the questions change as you take it. It's not a standard test. It's still out of 1600. It's not as long, it's shorter. It's about 2 hours and 14 minutes only now. So it is different. The stats are not out completely about what the effect will be, obviously, for a little while. But we do have a 2% bump in both of them, which is good. I don't know if you can punch it to the next one. Thank you. So reading and writing, we had a nice increase there, about 6%, or no, 9%, almost 8.2%, and with a nice increase on the evidence-based reading and writing, which is good. So we're going to keep it quick, but you can go to the next one there, Josh. And in math, we had an increase of, what's that? 3.3% increase as well. And we are overall, we're working on math in general, working on reading and writing in general, with everything. We'd like to see a bigger bump. We did have a little disconnect with the Blue Book app. In the beginning, we had some issues being able to get kids on to get trained in it. Next year, that'll be worked out. But that was more technical aspect, because we have a plan in place for them to get training, but they do need that Blue Book app on there.
So the Blue Book app is an application that gets loaded onto the student's computer that allows them to sort of take practice tests so that they can get familiar with how the test will operate.
Yeah.
And unfortunately this year, there were some technical issues and we were unable to load the Blue Book app, so the students were not able to practice with that app to prepare for the exam. Unfortunately, students at other schools did have that opportunity. So we were at a slight disadvantage, but the students still improved very nicely. We were very happy. It really started to see that bounce back from the COVID dip that we had seen a few years ago.
Can I just make a point? I think I'm correct. Last month, we had shared the kids who have been with us all along versus the newcomer type.
Right.
That's not differentiated here.
No,
Correct?
all
This is all
students.
students who took the test.
Correct, yeah, this is everybody.
Segregated rather than disaggregated.
Aggregated, yeah. Yep, correct.
So next we'll move on to the grade 10, which is PSAT.
So one thing to note about the PSA 10 data, similarly to SATs, SATs, when you looked at the data from the 2022-2023 year for the 11th grade, there was a switch in formatting from, paper and pencil to the digital system. We had that shift for the 9th and 10th grade this year, so we transitioned. So we did see a slight dip when looking at the reading, writing, and math combined score here from last year to this year. But we also did have a total different formatting to the test this year as compared to last year. In reading and writing, we saw an increase from last year to this year in our scores. And then we saw a slight dip in our math scores from last year to this year.
Now we'll talk about the grade 9 PSAT 8-9 exam.
So for the grade 9 PSAT evidence-based reading and writing, what you can see is that there's a little bit of a dip there. For the 9th graders in particular, there are numerous people coming into the school, with the Blue Book app being problematic for the students, as well as with some of the internet outage. It made it a little bit harder for the students, so that they did drop. Next year, my colleagues and I are looking to see how we can get them on a Blue Book app a little bit earlier to ensure that they're testing, because especially as 9th graders when they're transitioning, they need that the most in comparison to all students in the school. For evidence-based reading and writing, this one was pretty interesting. This one I spent a lot of time double-checking, cross-referencing. Me too. Yes, I spent some time with Mr. Marchand and Ms. Kane, and then I went and checked it myself. I said, you know what? I don't know if I believe it, but I looked into it. It was absolutely correct. It remained consistent, 54%, 54%, and 54%. I'm a little bit of a math nerd. I've never seen anything like this before in my life, so go Torrington. For the next one, we did see a little bit of dip right here for the math by itself. And again, I'm attesting that a little bit to some of the changes that's happening for the Blue Book app, as well as what we need to do as educators, as well as leaders, as well as for the technology department to ensure everything's working the way we want it to work.
In math, the state testing for us has been a little bit lower than the average, admittedly, but we have started working towards the building thinking classrooms training, which a couple of administrators have gone to, the department has gone to, and some teachers have now gone to, which we have seen a difference in the classroom engagement, and once we see that implemented, so that's pretty exciting to see it coming forward.
And of course, we're also hopeful that when we move into the new school, we will no longer have internet issues.
Now, there was a request for chronic absenteeism, and positive news and happy news. We did decrease by 14% from 2021 till now. In the year 2021, we were at a 32% chronic absenteeism rate. In the year 2022, we were at a 24% chronic absenteeism rate. In the year 2023, we were at a 22% chronic absenteeism rate. And as of right now, we are at an 18% chronic absenteeism rate. So now it's not, that is a great one. So it's not just the data that we look at, there's also the story behind the data. The story behind the data is that our teachers are calling home, our counselors are calling home, our social workers are going home, our social workers are actually showing up to students' jobs in order to ensure that we connect with them. We have to find the students where they're at in order to reach them and help them come back to school. So I'm really proud of the work that the team is doing and the work that we will continue to do.
So piggybacking off that, before we start talking about UConn and AP courses, I'm just going to share a little bit of behavioral data. In terms of ISS incidents, we had 704 ISS incidents compared to last year when we had 721. OSS, we had 388 events of OSS compared to 307 last year. Expulsions, we had 5 this year compared to 8 last year. Dress code violations, we had 292 this year compared to 3 last year. Defiance, we had 328. So this is a big difference compared to 881 last year. So that's gone down tremendously. Disruption has also gone down by a lot. We had 124 disruption events this year. Compared to 250 last year. Restricted substances events, we had 17 this year compared to 60 last year. Hallway incidents, this has also gone down a lot. We had 741 this year, which sounds like a lot, but in comparison to last year, we had 1,147 events. Our referral count this year, we had 4,267 office referrals. This is compared to 3,524 from last year, so that's gone up a lot. But the difference that we've seen in the data is some of the things that we might see as more minor, like tardies, dress code, some of those kind of situations. We actually have seen a dramatic increase, so not only are we processing a lot more referrals, but we're actually just targeting a lot more behaviors and being able to intervene, which I think is helping with attendance and things like that overall too, because we're a lot more on top of the occurrences going on in the building.
And I know the most dramatic change was obviously the dress code, and as you all recall, we had a lot of conversation last year around the dress code, and we were tasked by the Board of Education to start enforcing the dress code a little bit more strictly. We communicated that to our staff, and as you can see, we went from last year, only 3 staff members turning in referrals for dress code to, what was it this year, Amanda?
292.
Yep, and Amanda handled, I think, 291 of those 292 dress code referrals.
I guess the only thing I would add on to that is we did move on to a digital referral system, when the digital referral system makes it easier for teachers to submit referrals, so therefore we're addressing the concerns a little bit more readily, and students are starting to pay attention. So that's why it jumped up a lot quicker. When I did this work out at the middle school too, we saw the same thing. Quick uptick when we gave them digital referral systems, so it's pretty good that students are recognizing that we are addressing their need, and the teachers have recognized that we're addressing their concerns.
Another great part of the digital referral system, which John and I had an opportunity to talk about the other day, it creates much more transparency for our teachers. One of the issues that teachers often feel in the old system is they would write up a paper referral, a handwritten referral, submitted to the office, and it takes time for those referrals to get processed. And it often feels to a teacher like there is no consequence because the consequence is delayed. With the digital referral system, the teacher is able to see the entire process of the referral, from when it's submitted to when the dean processes it, to when the AP processes it, to what the consequence was for the student. So it creates a lot more transparency for our teachers. So the teachers, of course, are much happier with the digital referral system. So that's been a real big win for the year. Okay, so I think we're ready to move on to the next slide, which is our
Major behavior problems. UConn and AP. UConn and AP students. This year we had 463 unique students who took what we call a .08, a higher level course between UConn, Northwestern, or AP courses. So that's 463 out of 1,000 students. It's a pretty high number. It's fantastic.
So almost half.
Almost half, yep.
about 45% of the students.
Yeah, that's great.
Some sort of college-ready course.
Yep.
So that would be a dual credit at the end of that experience.
Well, that would depend on AP, they have to pass the exam, and UConn, they have to
But
pass
the
the
ability
standards.
to.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Correct. Yep. That's correct. But even more than that, actually, because we give a total of an AP test. We give a total 170 this year, AP different tests to students. We've opened it up, try and give everybody an opportunity to take any AP test that we offer, that AP offers. So we will proctor it for them. They have to study on their own independently, or if they can find a teacher to help them, that's up to them. But we did allow that, which did up our total tests to 170 in 2024 as opposed to 104 in 2023. So we did see a big uptick there, allowing them. So we had people taking macroeconomics, microeconomics, teach those courses in the AP courses, well, actually at all, but they wanted to take them. So why not? If we can offer them, why not let them test it? So they want to study it themselves, or they want to take it on. I think it's great. So unique students taking the AP testing were 94 in 2024 compared to 81 in 2023. So that's great. A good amount of students which are taking advantage. It is nice, the UConn courses, some of the UConn courses that we have now that are new are not just what you would call higher level students. They're accessible by anybody in the school. So anybody taking like a biology can go into and take a biology tech. Those courses have been flooded with students just majorly. So it's been very interesting to see. And successful, not just taking a course, but they've been very successful.
Another highlight related to that is up until the 2020, including the 2020-2021 school year, the percentage of students from Torrington High School who had been accepted to college was in the mid 50% range. Since that time, we have been consistently in the high 60% range, so about 10% more students are being accepted to college from Torrington High School than had been previously. So another nice little thing related to UConn and AP courses. Josh. And speaking of colleges, here is just a selection of some of the colleges that our students were accepted to this year. The full list was far too long to stick up there on the screen, but we just picked a few to highlight some of the great schools that our seniors have gotten into this year. You may even see your alma mater up there, depending on it. Ready, Josh? Jerry. Academic supports, Kenny?
These are the academic supports we have at the school right now. We have the student success team. The student success team is is a throughway that we use to leverage all of the different resources that we have. We made some tremendous inroads this year, and that in the SST, we now look at quantitative as well as qualitative data. Quantitative, looking at just the hard fact data. Qualitative data, we systematize it where we get the data from the teachers in order to leverage their resources. Students can go to Academic Resource Center and they could elect to drop in, or the SST can submit students to the Academic Resource Center where we're tracking the data that the students are working on. We give them SMART goals and then we monitor it to see how students are progressing. For extended school day, it's similar to Academic Resource Center where we are doing the same thing. Students can drop in, or SST can submit a referral where students go to the extended school day. One thing that's really phenomenal about Academic Resource Center as well as extended school day is that students are using it to have teachers look at their resumes in order to find a job in the community, or students are also using it to have teachers review their college essays before they submit it. I thought that was pretty phenomenal highlight this school year.
Penny, could I interrupt? Could you just tell the committee, I think they'd be interested to know, what adults are in the Academic Resource Center? Is it kind of like a help center for kids having trouble? I've just given them a little bit more.
We have humanities as well as STEM. Humanities being English and history teachers, and STEM, science and math teachers that are in there, and they're helping students on skills that they may lack or if students are having a mental block. We also have
extended day, there's 4 core content teachers.
for both Academic Resource Center and extended day.
Oh,
Yeah.
So basically, our students at the high school have opportunities throughout the school day to drop into Academic Resource Center for extra help in a core subject area. And then they also have like this after-school opportunity to stay and get more support.
And they're
Right?
taking advantage of it.
Yep. Okay.
We also have high dosage tutoring, which is grant funded. Something that's a highlight from high dosage tutoring is that teachers are explaining that they're seeing a transference piece into the classroom from students intending it. So that's a highlight, and hoping that we can get that grant for next year. We also have summer school, which will be operating in a traditional format, and we've already sent out the summer school letter for the students, and we're looking forward to see how that plays out for this year. We also have concepts in math and strategic reading. These two in particular are skill deficits, so they're like tier 2 interventions, and then we use that to see how students are progressing throughout their education, as well as if we need to make a recommendation for special education. One thing that's phenomenal with all of this together is that we zoom in and looked at all of the different pieces, and then we zoomed out in order to improve our MTSS, multi-tier student support, to ensure that each different piece that we have are talking to one another and we're sharing data more freely this school year.
No,
Essentially the last bullet on this.
So now we'll move to some of the highlights or highlighted initiatives from this year that were new this year at Torrington High School. Amanda?
So some of the things I think we already spoke to majority of the bullets that are up here. Right now, we're currently working on the schedule for next year. We have, well over 200 students that are incoming freshmen that came in with chosen college and career pathways that they wanted to explore. So making sure those students can hopefully get into the courses that they'd really like to pursue that align with, pathways that they're interested in. We spoke already about the digital system to track behavior, and how using that system has really improved just, I think, how quickly too that we're able to collaborate and process disciplinary referrals. Trace, if you want, you could speak more to this too.
Sure. I can. So we've been working with the Connecticut Science Center really since last June. We work with them to revise our biology curriculum to ensure alignment with NGSS. And then there was also professional learning throughout the year on inquiry and discourse in science classrooms. And then we did something called lesson study, which is when teachers come together, teachers who are teaching the same course come together, they collaboratively plan a lesson, and then they observe each other, and then they come together and they debrief, and they really look at the specific moves that a teacher makes and what works and impacts student learning. So did a particular resource elicit the thinking that we hoped, that kind of thing. that's something that we've done at the middle school as well, and the feedback from teachers has been really positive. They find that lesson study to be, just really powerful and informative, and the experience to plan together and then see it implemented in different classrooms, and how subtle differences can really make a difference. They just have reported that they have found that to be really beneficial.
And then the last bullet up there, I think Kenny spoke to a little bit already, but I know there's been a lot of work trying to update our MTSS process at the high school, and just making sure that we're most effective for our students.
Josh, you pop to the last slide. So it's been really, an amazing year at Torrington High School. Could not be prouder of both our staff and students. Raider Rally was a huge success this year. We had, as you're going to hear in a moment, a group of students and staff go up and make a presentation at the NEAS conference. We've had just amazing things happen this year. It's wonderful to see our numbers coming back to those pre-COVID numbers, both in terms of, the SAT scores, the chronic absenteeism. It's nice to finally see a high school going back to the way things were in terms of, it being about the students, it being about learning, and being about what's going on in the classroom. So if you have any questions before we turn over to our presenters.
I have one question and this is the either good thing or bad thing about being broadcast. Somebody has texted, wants to know how the kids are doing on the AP tests, what do the scores look like?
Good question. We don't have those scores back. They'll come back to us in July.
Okay, so we will hear that later.
We'll hear that in next, and then usually in the fall we'll
A lot
present
of the
those.
kids who take the test haven't necessarily taken the course that would
Correct.
enable them to do that, they just feel like challenging the test. which
Yep.
is-
They feel like trying to get another extra college credit and like challenging themselves, yeah.
So we will hear that in August. Oh, okay.
I just have a question for the AP. There's a lot of students that take courses, they don't take the tests. What's
So-
usually the reasoning?
That's a good point. So we have, anybody that's in the AP class at Torrington High School will take the AP test. If they're in a UConn class, they do not need to take the AP test. So if they're in a UConn class, they'll be getting a UConn credit, and the curriculum doesn't necessarily match up with the AP test itself. So we were finding students struggling on the test, but getting a UConn credit. So we decided not to make it mandatory to take the AP test if you're taking the UConn course. The curriculum actually does not match. Like, for example, U.S. history was one of the big ones that we had. But now and we're finding that more students are going into the UConn classes. We can get the credit just by, not just by, it's a really hard class. It's a hard, I don't know, but it's the UConn classes you can go into. You want to say something?
About you?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, well, I'll actually be going in with, I'm going to UConn, I'll be going in with 36 credits, so I'm technically like a sophomore in credits.
Wow.
Yeah.
So in the AP class, you have to get a 4 or 5 on the test now for a lot of the schools. Whereas at UConn, if you pass the course with a certain grade, depending on the course, you'll get a credit that'll transfer to most schools.
And not all schools take the AP credits,
Correct.
even if you get
Excuse me. Right.
So there is some debate about which is more advantageous, AP or
The College Board will obviously very well push for AP testing. Yeah.
So the 463, that's combined?
That's combined,
Okay.
correct. Yep.
Yes, some schools still don't want to give transfer credit to any course taken in a high school.
Right.
Yes, depends. Yep. It depends, yep.
but the training's really good.
And they'll usually take it as an elective credit. They might not take it one for one. The U.S. history course will count for U.S. history in, say, Brown, but they might take it as an elective credit. It will count as some kind of credit.
Rather than a specific.
Exactly, yeah.
That's been something they do.
Right.
Other questions? Well, we have all these people here. And I really, before we have more questions, want to thank you for coming. This time of the year, there are deadlines and secondary schools, and thank you for being here despite all those things that need to be wrapped up in the next few days. But more questions? See how thorough your presentation.
There you go.
And as part of their presentation, they have Aaron Sullivan and a couple of our students to share with you something pretty exciting we're very proud of that happened just last month. you ladies want to introduce yourselves.
Sit at the table so people can hear you.
Yeah, you're going to compete with the air conditioner, so you have to be loud, okay?
Just like student focus group.
Thank you for having us tonight. I'm also just going to introduce them quickly and then the girls will take over. I'm Erica, if you don't know me, I'm an English teacher at the high school and also the advisor for our Raider Rally program, which is our biannual charity event that started in 2013. We just had our 7th Raider Rally. It is, I advise it, but it is student organized. We have here Ruby Leonard and Emily Cagno. Ruby was one of the 2 student leaders of the Raider Rally this year. Emily was one of our organizing helpers this year and actually did 30 hours of community service herself as part of helping out with it. And the 2 of them attended the NEASC conference showcase in
Westford, Mass.
I'm trying to remember the month. Was it May? Was it May?
May.
Yeah, it was May 4th, yeah.
Wasn't that one?
It was
was
supposed to be in
that
April, but it got snowed
Yeah,
out.
it got
Yeah,
snowed out.
rainstorm and
Yeah.
all.
Yeah. So they went, and we're just 2 of, I think, 4 student presenters in total that were at the conference to present about the event, and I'll let them take it from there.
Yeah, so we presented, there were about 30 people we presented in front of, which was interesting. So Freya and I were like the co-leaders of it, so we made a slideshow to present about like what Raider Rally is, why it's important for our community, how much money we raised, and this year's theme was Count on Me, because we wanted like to talk about how we like count on our community and they can count on us, so we could raise money for them. So this year we raised around $18,000, right? And then in 2022 we raised like $19,000. So like in total of all the 7, we raised like almost like $120,000 for our local charities, which is great.
Don't have to say almost 100.
Oh, almost 100. I lied, sorry. But yeah, we just talked about the importance of like school involvement and how everyone has a part, and how not only helping the community but also our school community, because everyone's working together and raising money and the friendly competition between classes. So our hard work pays off in the end for their event.
Okay. They were really interested in the idea that we all had something to do, whether that be we were inside because we didn't want to go outside, or we were outside doing different activities. They were also really interested in how Ms. Sullivan got us to participate. We were really motivated by Battle of the Classes. My class won. And they also liked how if students couldn't donate money or like different like canned goods or anything, we could donate time, and that counted. So they were really interested in how we got everyone involved.
Questions for our guests?
And tell them about the experience of being a participant on Friday.
You want me to tell you about my experience?
To speak about your.
I was slightly disappointed. I was not the largest fundraiser in the dunk tank. I was edged out, I understand, by a couple of teachers, oddly enough. I don't know.
Yes.
I was a little disappointed, but yes, I got to spend some time in the dunk tank. It was a little chilly up there.
So, do you guys want to speak about Friday's event?
Yeah, I was gonna say my thing probably was the baby goats we had. That was fun. I like competing with my friends on like the inflatables. I felt like a little kid again. We had like obstacle courses or the bungee run, so that was really fun. It was just a good day with everyone.
I liked to see the teachers and the principal in the tank. It was just fun to see them like not be so serious all the time. The baby goats were really cute. I enjoyed that. And all the different activities.
So going all the way back, Joanne Creedon was principal at the high school in 2013 when we started this program, which was born out of a request of the students to have an event that would bring them together as a community as well. And Friday's event this year really held true to that tradition. It was a great day at the school. There was a lot of positive energy. The students really enjoyed it. It becomes a field day. They're participating outside, that they're talking about the inflatables and the baby goats, and there's kickball competitions and things like that. And that sense of community and that energy really helps to bring everybody together, as well as reinforce the importance of giving back to the community and being involved in community service.
Can I just ask a quick question? Ruby, I think. Who was your audience? I'm curious about who the audience was at the NEAS.
It was like other school administrators and like teachers from around like
Around the region,
Yeah.
around New England. Cool. Okay. Very nice.
And they did show a lot of interest in, when the girls presented, they showed a lot of interest in the program and reached out for more information about how it's run, so with interest to implement it at their own schools.
So,
How many different charities did you donate to?
4. We do Friendly Hands, Fish, Susan B. Anthony, and the Community Soup Kitchen.
This is an annual event?
Biannual.
Biannual, okay.
It's a little, it's
It's a lot.
So if we do, and honestly, I do think for the students, having it every other year maintains some of the energy and the the anticipation and the specialness of it.
Yeah.
That's nice. You should be very proud of yourselves.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Thank you.
well, thank you. Thank you for coming and telling us these good things.
Of course.
And we are proud of you also.
Yeah, we're
Thank
very
you.
proud. Very proud, and we thank so much Ms. Sullivan for all of her energy and effort around this.
Okay, thank you guys. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. Good news is always welcome.
You make it sound like the next item. You make it sound like the next agenda item won't be good news.
Oh, no, it's great news.
Anyway, go ahead, let's hear what we're,
I think it's great news. I think you'll all
it
be.
sounded like it was gonna be last month.
Yeah, no,
It'll be fine.
I wish we had gotten to it last month because some of the administrators who were ready to speak about it last month couldn't be here tonight. Josh, is Michael Klein on the line? Okay.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Okay. And Laura's here too. So just to frame things, we have been asked to speak to you may remember back in the fall, the board adopted a policy. Michael Wilson wrote a policy on social promotion, retention, based on student performance. This is something that we've taken very seriously. I believe it was in September that the policy was adopted by the board and posted. It was widely circulated. It was featured in a very prominent place on the website. It was communicated to students at the secondary level, beginning in 6th grade, right from, early fall. Teachers made sure to make sure that kids were aware that this was in place. There were reminders throughout the course of the year that not everybody gets the trophy, right? You have to earn promotion to the next grade level. There is some nuance to this, as you will hear this evening. Laura is online to share through the special ed lens what that means. We're going to talk about, and it looks a little bit different at the various levels. And I think probably what makes the most sense is to talk in reverse order. At the high school, there really is no such thing, as Mr. Scott will tell you, right? There's no such thing as retention. You either earn the credit or you don't. So he can speak about that. And then Shelley's going to share how we kind of navigate this at the middle school, which is probably, I think, the most complex level to deal with it, just by the nature of the beast, if you will, right? And then even at the 4, 5, and the K3 level, there is some difference between those two levels. And so I think we have some good information to share with you that we're working on and we're excited about. So you want to talk about the high school, what it looks like?
So of course, at the high school, there's no grade promotion. Students earn credits each year. They earn 1 credit for a full year course, a half credit for a semester course. They have to pass the course in order to get the credit. They also have to attend school regularly to earn the credit. Any student who is deemed to be excessively absent loses their credit whether they maintained a passing grade or not. Excessive absences at the high school level are 10 or more in a semester course and 18 or more in a full year course. 65 or above is the passing grade, so you must maintain a 65 average or above in order to gain a credit for a course. We have 8 blocks within the day. Most students do not take 8 courses each year. They do have study halls in their courses, but they do have the opportunity to earn up to 8 credits a year. So if a student does fall a little bit behind in one particular year, let's say they struggle in a course or they struggle with attendance, they do have the opportunity to make up ground later on. So the required by state and by board policy graduation credit amount is 25 credits. For our students, what we track instead of promotion rate is what's called the 4-year graduation cohort rate. So the state keeps track of every 9th grader who comes into our school and tracks whether or not that 9th grader graduates in 4 years. Our graduation cohort rate has consistently been right around 83-84% for the past 5 years. Within that graduation cohort rate, there is a separate graduation cohort rate for special education students, which Laura can speak a little bit more about, because special education students, of course, do have the opportunity to attend high school for a little bit longer a time, especially if they need special programming. With the graduation credit change that came a few years ago, that was when we started to really adjust our scheduling in order to give students a greater opportunity to earn more credits, because the state was requiring more credits to graduate. Additionally, the state started, as they often do, mandating that certain specific courses became graduation requirements. We have a new one starting with our sophomore class for next year, which will be now all students in the state of Connecticut are required to take a personal finance course. So now we have to find a way to get a personal finance course for every student. And additional graduation requirements include PE, specific history courses, and then on top of that, the Board of Education sets additional graduation requirements, of course, which we passed last year, which requires specific number of credits in English, specific numbers of credits in math, science, social studies, etc. So that's where the high school is at. So there is not really a social promotion element to the high school. You earn your required number of credits and are considered the next grade level, or you don't earn them and you are still in the same grade level. Unfortunately, we do see some students who do 9th grade more than once, which is unfortunate, but by having those extra credits in the schedule, they do have the opportunity to catch back up to their original 9th grade class, if that were to happen.
So we do have students who are not necessarily age appropriately placed in their grade level, right? Just by virtue of the number of credits they have earned. So it's not really retention, but it kind of is retention.
But with the opportunity to catch up, so that's.
Thank you.
You said that the state tracks 9th graders.
Yep.
What if a 9th grader went to a different school, then came back?
So it would
Do they
depend on if they
still
still graduated in 4 years. So that's why our graduation rate is different than the 4-year graduation cohort rate. So our graduation rate, we keep track of the students who are going into their senior year and do they graduate, which is a much higher rate than the 4-year graduation cohort. The senior class graduation rate usually is somewhere between 88 and 92%, depending on the year, whereas the 4-year graduation cohort rate is significantly lower than that. Part of the issue with that is if we do have a 9th grader who is with us and they transfer out of our school and do not graduate in 4 years, that counts against us.
Okay, but one that transfers out but then comes back doesn't count?
They would if they graduate in 4 years, they would count for us, but if they don't graduate in 4 years, they would count against us.
So say if they went out in 9th grade,
Yep.
came back in 10th,
Yep,
or came back in 9th,
yep.
they repeat 9th.
If they were with us
So that's the
9th
4
grade,
years.
they count.
If they come back in 10th,
They don't.
they don't count, because they're only 3
The state
years
won't
at
count
your
them.
high school.
Right.
Got it.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, so the state's a little bit stricter in terms of their count, whereas we usually keep track of, students as they go through the process, and then when they get to the senior year, we have a graduation rate, which is a little different.
Right, thank you.
Who's next?
I was gonna ask Laura, is there anything specific to the high school that you wanted to add?
Not really. The only thing is that students may have various accommodations and modifications in their IEP that may alter either what they are required to do or how they're doing it, or they may have additional supports to be able to do it. However, they are also still needing to acquire the credits. So that's really, it's really more at the middle school. I'll speak a little bit more about that.
Okay, Shelley.
Okay, yes.
I think we have
And-
one more question.
Oh, one more, oh, sorry,
One
so
quick
sorry.
question, sorry.
Yep.
How does the 84% cohort rate compare to others in our DIRG, if you happen to know, or others in the state?
Yep.
And what do you find to be the biggest challenge to that 84% number? Is it the transient population, the in and outs, or is it academic?
Yeah.
What's the cause of it?
So, within our DIRG, we're slightly, and I do mean very slightly higher than the DIRG average, 1 percentage point. So we're not significantly, but yes, all the schools in our DIRG are battling the same kind of situation, which is that transient student population. A lot of our students come into the school in 10th grade, 11th grade. We have a lot of students who leave us after 9th grade because their families move to different states, different towns for different opportunities, and that does lower our graduation cohort rate. The state graduation cohort rate tends to remain around 88 to 89%, so we're not that far off from the state average, but that's state communities that have a more or transient population tend to have lower graduation cohorts, and we're doing pretty well with that.
As a math geek, I'm gonna ask the question.
Yeah.
How many of the do we know, and you have people who do stay for all 4 years, or if they start with us in 9th grade and don't move away?
Yeah.
What's the graduation rate of somebody who stays with us from 9th grade?
We could probably find that for you, but I don't have it.
The agenda item on this says specifically this policy, so if we could contain our questions to the agenda item, that would keep us moving.
Thanks for
So I think that's the high school.
Thank you, Brian, and the whole high school team. Shelley is going to share with us how this kind of plays out at her level, at the middle school level.
And as Sue kind of alluded to, it's complicated in the middle school because we're not credit bearing.
Why don't you come up to the table?
We can get out of your way.
So we're not credit bearing, so we had to determine how are we going to define it and how are we going to qualify students for summer school. And thankfully, we did that through a lot of collaboration with OTL.
Well, before you say, sorry, I'm gonna interrupt you.
Yep.
We're not making it about summer school, right?
Yes.
We're making it about pass-fail and
Sure.
summer school as an intervention, as a
Absolutely.
safety net. So how
Absolutely.
are we identifying students who we're concerned about promoting to the next level?
So we identified them through looking at their core courses and passing within that as defined as a 65, which is similar to the high school. So we looked at math, science, social studies, and ELA. And we really increased the communication with students and with families with regards to where students were at. So we did it at a multi-pronged approach. Teachers were expected to contact families repeatedly. We also had our counselors develop academic contracts with kids. So they would look through the students and they would pull them down. They had a written contract with sort of the different supports that we had available, which might be the homework club or it might be the learning lab. They actually created plans with the students. And then they took those plans and communicated those plans with the parents, saying, I met with your child, this is where your child's at, this is what your child has agreed would be to help them move forward. In putting in all of those supports and communication pieces, we noticed that our numbers of failures was increasingly declining every time we pulled the data on it. I did weekly updates in our my regular parent communication piece, which some of you are very familiar to getting, but we also identified specific groups of kids and sent out communication pieces specifically to those families for students who were failing courses. And we looked at failing one or more core courses. We do also, Shelley started by saying summer school, we have a very robust summer school program planned at the middle school. At the high school, it's credit recovery. At the middle school, a little bit different. So that is sort of a last ditch effort for students. Most of the students who will attend will have, first of all, students who are at risk of failing, who have not made good on that, are being required to attend summer school. If they fail to attend summer school, it's an automatic, you don't pass go. Those calls have been made. We are getting ready to roll that program out right after the 4th of July. Many, if not most of those kids are in a situation where, you know, they have a few assignments that they have to take care of, that sort of thing. They have maybe some assessments. So they have it's within reach, but I will tell you that we will have a number of students who will end up repeating the grade that they're currently in at Torrington Middle School. Is that fair to say?
That is fair to say.
Yes.
Okay,
From 3 grades?
Yes.
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 okay, moving on.
Moving on. Mr. Klein, do you want to jump, or Laura, do you want to say something about middle school?
Yeah, thank you. So I just wanted to say that I worked with Shelley and with Sue McMahon to get a list together of the students that were failing courses that were identified special education students. And I communicated directly with the case managers of those students to see what were we doing to try to get the improvement that we needed. So a lot of the stuff that Shelley already talked about, but then in addition to that, going back to PPT, looking at what's being done for their programming, they have IEPs with mandated classroom accommodations and modifications. Are those being done in general ed with Fidelity? And if not, then those needed to be addressed. And if it was in a special ed taught class, what are we doing with our kids as far as getting the parents engaged with our instruction, with looking again at modifications, extra time, what else do we need to do? And like Shelley said, there has been a really nice increase in the number of kids that are now passing, and I'm hoping we're going to get to almost all by the end of the year, but that's to be seen yet. That's it.
Michael, do you want to jump in for 4-5?
I'd be happy to. So I really appreciate the time that we had leading up to this with our admin team a few weeks ago, kind of looking at all of the information that we have on kids, the internal information with all the tests that they've taken, all of the assessments that our kids have taken from the external points too. We looked collectively at things like how our kids did on the STAR assessments, how they did on even some of the most recent state assessments that we're starting to trickle in too, which has been fantastic. But we've tried to really get a general sense of where all of our kids were before we did anything else. And what I really like is that a lot of our criteria at the 4-5 level is very close and very similar to what it is even at the K3 level, because that gives our families consistency. It allows us to talk a lot of the same language in terms of what we're looking for to make sure the kids are ready. And it was really grounded in the work that we set up, even with some of that work last year with Portrait of a Graduate, because it allowed us to make sure that when we went back to it, the kids were ready for those next steps and ready for middle school and ready for high school. Once we got to that same place of what we kind of established in terms of what we were looking for, we went through our class list, we went through all of our information, and we found those kids that weren't meeting that criteria, who weren't ready for all of those next steps ahead of us and maybe needed that gift of time. So what we did after that is I know I've been meeting with families left, right, and center, and a lot of it has just been discussing how Torrington schools are supporting them and what we're going to do next. And honestly, they've been collaborative meetings, and I had one this afternoon with a family, and I honestly went into these thinking that it was going to be a lot of a hard pill to swallow in places. And when we came at it and we showed them all the information, we showed them all the test scores of where their kids were at, parents appreciated it. In all honesty, I think it built a level of trust with our families that we really do care. And it's not a punitive piece. It's not that their kids are getting punished, but at the end of the day, we have a moral responsibility to make sure that their kids were ready for middle school. And if a fifth grader wasn't ready and they were reading on a third grade level, we weren't going to just give them a trophy to move on. And we really wanted to give them the gift of time. The crazy part is, I know that this ties back to the other policy that we've had probably a few conversations on, but all of the retentions that we're looking at Forbes are all those later birthdays. They are September, October, November, December. And in many of the conversations, even the one that I had today, or yes, earlier today, it was a December birthday. You're talking a matter of a few weeks, and the families were really appreciative. And we talked about that. We went back through report cards and we looked at this child's history, and they've always been struggling across the board. And every single family has walked out of that space feeling appreciated and feeling heard. And I think that has been the collaborative approach that we've taken at Forbes. And I know my colleagues across the board have done the same too. So we really appreciate the ability to continue to support our families. And I think it's gone well in terms of strengthening that bond and trust that they have with us.
Thank you.
Next.
Ready for Peter?
Hi, so at K3, retention's not something that's completely new to us. Generally, students in kindergarten, first grade tend to be the ones that aren't really ready to move on in a wide way. So this changes things a little bit for us as we're focusing on looking at credits, which we don't have. So really determining, are these students really ready for the next grade? Reading was our main focus. When we met with OTL, we met, Kelly and I met, and along with the 4-5, really to determine how would be the best way for us to implement this policy at our level. So again, we started with that focus on looking at reading, but we really need to look wider than that. So we have newcomers that are coming in and not speaking English. We have special education students. We may have some students that are a little immature, but they're making great growth. And so we really want to look back and see, are they making steady growth and they look like they're going to be in the next year or so on the path where they're going to be ready to move forward? Or are they going too slow and they really need that gift of time, like Mr. Klein said? So we set some standards and using our DILIS scores, using our STAR assessments, and really looking at those students individually that are not quite where they need to be. We also have had meetings with families, really to make sure that they're on board with this. That families aren't on board, if we're not going to do something different, then really retention is not going to make any difference with a student. So we consider that piece as well. Our plans will be, if we have students, when we have students that are retained, especially in third grade, but really all the way down, that we'll also be continuing interventions with them. So we're making sure that we're not just rinsing and repeating, as you would say. So we're not just going to do the same thing again. We're going to make sure that we really figure out what is the issue that they're having, why are they struggling to read, is it decoding, is it something else, usually it's decoding, at our level, and how we could hit that a little bit differently to make sure that they're ready by the time they move up to fourth grade.
Thank you. What we are doing, I know we're running short on time, but what we're doing as an admin team, all of us, and we're going to have to really buckle down with this summer because we're kind of building this plane while we're flying it, is figuring out what we're doing different for these kids, right? We can't just rinse and repeat. It's not, it doesn't work, and that's probably one of the biggest reasons why retention fails. Often, we need to do something different for our kids, and that's a promise we've made to each other. We've promised one another that we've promised our 4-5 principals we're not sending them children who are not ready for that level. We're not sending kids on to the middle school who are not ready to be there. So we will have more concrete information in terms of maybe some percentages as we get closer to the end of summer school.
Yep, and summer school is an important component of that as well. That these are students that maybe summer school is going to be enough for them. Usually it just kind of keeps them from sliding backwards, but really our summer school this year is focused solely on that reading component. It's about an hour and a half a day for 4 weeks. And we're really hoping that those kids will make some gains over summer school, and we can make final decisions after that if we need to.
It's the first year we wrote out a program, so, first year the policy didn't implement it. So we'll find out.
Yeah.
It'll get better.
But it's good to have the option.
We're gonna have quite a few kids.
Yeah.
Okay. Any absolutely necessary questions for anybody? Be asked questions, so.
You know what I didn't do? I'm sorry, I'm just seeing you, Joanne, over there. Did you have anything you wanted to add about your piece of things and how it might layer on?
Well, I think it's already been mentioned, the fact that we do have newcomers arriving. In the past year, we've had 100 new students. The year before, we had 100 new students. And these students really need time to develop language. And just as when I gave a presentation to this committee a while back, and I presented you with an algebra problem in Chinese, you know, it was a bit of a challenge. So I think we have to allow, excuse me, the English learner to have time learning the language, trying to acquire the language. But I've been part of the conversations with all the administrators dealing with our multilingual learners.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I think it's important to add to how this is married to the attendance, because we've had a lot of success with our LEAP team and our social workers and the visits, where those kids who were not coming to school, who were failing and were way behind, now we're getting them in the seats. And they're present and they're in the classroom, and we've seen some great strides with those students who had 40, 50 days of absences, now being in our classrooms more frequently, and we're seeing that you can do the work, you just have to be here, and we can teach you when you're here. Makes a huge difference. School's not optional. It's something we have to do.
We're done, except for comments from the order. Instead of going around the table in the room, does anyone have anything they feel they need to say? Please feel free to say it, but we have 2 meetings after this. We need to get out. Okay, absent that, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. Oh, but first, I do want to say thank you again to everybody. And everybody's on a deadline, not just the high school people. I guess I'm thinking, because I know how that works. Everyone else is on a deadline to get things wrapped up and get things done. Thank you all for coming.
Have a great summer. We don't see you all for.
Well, that's true too. We don't meet again. That's another
Yeah.
good order thing. We don't meet till August, so we get July off, so thank you all.
5:30.
Enjoy.
Next week.
5:30 start time.
5:30 start time, new start time.
Yeah, the
the
following meeting will be immediately following
The first meeting, so we don't have to wait, say you finish at 6:30, we don't have to wait till 7.
That makes
A
sense.
little bit new way of doing things.
So moved. So second.
All in favor?
Bye.
We are adjourned.
Thank